welcome back to a brand new video of PJ Codes. Now in this video, we're going to be doing something interesting. We're going to be building a food ordering app, the UI for a food ordering app in pure JavaScript. So we're not going to be using any libraries, no React, no Angular, none of that, no jQuery, straight up vanilla JavaScript, okay? And we have, so basically just to walk you through, we have some JSON here that's being rendered as cards. You have restaurant name, address, number of reviews, and we have a tag type, right? So we'll just call it like a tag. And then we have some functionality. We have the ability to search, sort alphabetically, and filter by tag. Okay, so just to kind of show you how the search works, you pick up name a restaurant, hit search, very simple, and you can even search by tags. Oh, not closure. Pizza. Okay, now you have all the pizzas, and you can even search by substring. So we type Mex, and we have Mexican as well. And I know there's a restaurant named Kang something, so let's just search for that. Kang Ho Dong Baekgyong. I guess that's I don't know what that is, but search. We search by the substring, so you get that part. Okay. Likewise. Now, if you want to sort this alphabetically, you just hit sort, and it sorts all alphabetically by name. Okay, I didn't put a reset button yet. Okay, now you can even filter by type here. So you want all pizzas, right? So now we have all pizzas. Likewise, we want all American, and this is, like I said, this is done all by pure JavaScript, and this video was actually inspired by one of my favorite YouTubers. His name is Akshay Saini. He's a developer in India, and extremely brilliant guy. And I follow all his videos. And I was watching one of his videos the other day. This one here, developing a food ordering app in 1 hour for machine coding front-end interview. And I was really interested, and I wanted to give this a go, and I wanted to see if I can kind of follow his logic and build it the same way he sort of walks through it. And I could have done this my own way, but I wanted to follow his logic, his modularity, because I think it really makes a lot of sense. And I thought it was really great the way he explained it. So I went ahead and used most of his logic in the same exact way. And definitely check his videos out. It's great content. All right, and the code for this is all here. So if you go to github.com/pjcodesjs/food ordering app. I just started this GitHub. It's recently. I only have like 2 repos. The previous one was for the Webpack tutorial that we did. Hopefully you looked at it as well. Look at all that contribution, right? So we had the Webpack tutorial, and we have this food ordering app. Okay, so definitely check it out. All the code's in here. Okay, so let's go back here, and as you notice, I haven't put any CSS. I haven't styled it up at all. This is using Flexbox. We are using some Flex properties like Flex wrap, no wrap, and all that good stuff. But that's just to get it in a doable spot. So we have all that set up, and right now I'm just going to walk you through the functionality of building this, and then in the further videos we'll optimize it. We'll add some more functionality here. So right now, if you notice, if you search for a certain tag, and then if you try to sort, right now it's not going to sort the filtered results. It's going to sort everything. All right, so we definitely need to fix that as well. And over here, we would like to have a show all tag, so like basically like a reset, right? And then likewise, we want a reset button here, okay, instead of having to refresh the page. But I just wanted to kind of put this out there and just see, let's get the basics working first, the happy flow, and we'll work on all that stuff down the road. All right, so let's begin, guys. So let's begin. Now what we have here is just some blank HTML. So let's just begin by creating our form. Okay, so let's open up main tag here. So this way we can wrap everything inside our main. Okay, good semantics. Okay, now let's open up a form tag. Okay, and inside that, let's do field set. do a field set. Okay, now inside the field set, so field set is basically this is a required tag for forms because it's basically used to wrap together form elements. And sometimes if you run like an accessibility checker, if you don't have a field set element, it'll yell at you, and you can get points subtracted for accessibility scores. Okay, so let's move on. So let's open up an input tag. Let's do input, and let's do type equals text. Okay, let's give it a name of search. And let's do ID search res. Okay, search restaurants. Let's do a placeholder, and let's do search by name or tag. Okay, or type, I should say. Okay, now if you notice, I have type equals text, name equals search, and ID equals search res. This ID, we're gonna need it for to target this particular input for some functionality, some JavaScript purposes, and we can also use it to to style it if we need to. Okay, but remember, you want to keep your IDs unique. IDs are supposed to be unique, and try to use less IDs as you can. Okay. Now let's do a button for submit. Let's do ID. Oh, wow, Sublime is weird. Let's do search submit. Okay, that's going to be our search button. Let's do search. Okay, and beneath that, let's do a button for sorting as well. Okay, now you could use input type equals button. I just prefer using a button for what it is, because if you have too many inputs, it's kind of confusing. So let's do ID, and let's do sort restaurants. Okay, and we can just do sort alphabetically. I can type a lot better today than I did in my previous videos. Okay, so, and let's do a select. This is going to be for our filtering. Let's just give this an ID here. Filter, not filter. See, I just jinxed myself. Filter by type. Okay, and likewise, how we had a field set inside a select. It's a good practice to put an opt group as well. An opt group is basically it just groups option tags. Okay. And let's do selected, because we want this to be our default. Well, let's just do filter by type. Okay, and let's do option, and let's do our first type, Asian. Okay, that was Command Shift D on a Mac. I don't know on a PC what that equates to. You can probably Google it. Pizza, Mexican. And the last one was okay, I should probably put this alphabetically. Okay, all right. And let's we're also gonna need a div for our cards, right? So underneath our form, let's open up a div here, and we can just give it an ID of cards wrapper. Okay, so this is the div inside which we're gonna have all our cards. Okay, the cards for our restaurants, and this form here is basically just going to be the top header. Technically, I can put this inside a header tag, but I don't want this to be our header. When we optimize this down the road, we're going to have a separate header which will have a proper nav bar. This will just be like a toolbar. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. And also, I forgot to mention that if you notice all these package.json files and get ignore, I'm using live server. So I don't know if you want to do npm install with npm init live server. Yeah, you can probably Google it. But yeah, so now you see I have everything showed up. I had some default styles in there, and these are my styles for it. So definitely go ahead and feel free to pause. And I just wanted to save some time, so this is all the styling for it. Okay, if you have any questions, just definitely reach out or DM me. Okay, so I'm going to close out of this because we're not going to need this right now, or at least in this video. All right, so now we have our basic structure set up. Now, if we just inspect it, we're going to see that this is our body. Okay, inside that we have our main. Okay, and we have a form here, and then this guy here. We have nothing in there right now, but this is our cards wrapper. Inside this is we're gonna use this ID to inject all our cards in it. Okay, so let's just get into the JavaScript part of it now. Okay, but before we even get into the code, let's look at let's look at the JSON data, right? So I didn't use like a REST API, I didn't use like a Yelp API or anything like that. I just Googled restaurant API and I found this gist that has, mock restaurant data. So I just, use that and basically in my c.js, I just pasted it in. And now what I'm going to do is inside my app.js, what we're going to do is we're going to basically fetch this file. We're going to fetch this file, okay? And we're going to just, use that as like mock data, right? So let's just go ahead and start writing some JavaScript now, okay? First things first, now we're going to do on window loads, we're going to do window, we're going to use the window keyword, on load, okay? We're going to do equal to, open and close parentheses, arrow function syntax here with the equal to sign and the open and the caret. We're going to do curly brace, okay? And now this is going to, what this is saying is basically when the window loads, execute everything that's inside this function body, okay? And now what we need is basically two data structures that will basically store information for our search results and our filtered results, okay? So let's just initialize those here. Search results equals empty array. I'm going to do let filtered results equals empty array. And the reason we need these is basically because when we search for our results, we want to basically create a new array. We're going to be creating a new array, and we're going to be storing those results inside this array. And same for the filtered results. When we type in when we select a certain filter, we want to create a new list basically, and we're going to be doing that using one of the advanced array methods. Now, the reason we have these as empty here is in this particular location is because we're gonna have all our methods here, right? You basically want, for scoping reasons, you want to have these all the way on top. This way, they're not, they're just next in line in the global scope. They're basically in the global scope, and this way you can access them inside all of your functions. Okay, so let's leave those there, and we'll elaborate on those down the road. So our first function that we want to do is we want to have a function that fetches API data. Okay, a function that actually fetches the API data. After that, we want another function that basically creates and gets each individual card. Okay, creates, gets individual card. Okay, and we'll elaborate on these in a quick minute. And then we want another function that basically creates an HTML card, right? So we want to basically we want a function that basically creates the HTML, not just creates the card, but the HTML for each individual card. The difference between this function and this function is basically we're going to be using this function here that creates the HTML for each card, and we're going to be basically just invoking that here. Okay, so this is going to be and we're going to get to that. I'll show you that in the code, down the road. Okay, and after that, we're going to need another function that for search. Okay, search restaurant by name. Hopefully I spelled restaurant right. Okay, and then we're going to have another function. We're going to have another function for sort, right? So sort restaurant, and then another function lastly to filter by type. Okay, so the thinking is that we want to basically have reusable functions that are sort of like in a modularized fashion that we can basically just reuse, right? So we want to create a function that fetches all the data and just that one function that does exactly that. And then we want to have another function that basically creates the view, right? Like actually like renders all the cards, which is going to be invoking using this function that creates each individual card. Okay, so we're going to be invoking, it's kind of like going to go up the chain, and we'll be able to use this function here that basically just constructs a new view based on the parameters you pass it. And then we'll be using this function here inside our search, our sort, our filter, because these three are going to be basically creating a new view for each one of these functionalities. Okay, so this is what we want to strive for, is this sort of reusability of code. All right, so let's begin. Let's write our first, and we're going to write all our code using ES6 syntax. Okay, so we're going to do const, that's constant for those of you who are new to ES6. Okay, and we're going to initialize the variable get data. Okay, we're going to do equal to sign, parentheses, no parameters, and curly braces, open, close. I'm going to do fetch. Now remember I said we're going to be fetching the JSON from c.js. Now notice that it's inside the same directory, right, as our index.html or app.js, right, rather. So we're going to fetch that file. Okay, we're going to do /c.js. Okay, and then we're going to do, you guessed it, then. Okay, and this is a browser API called fetch. This way, if you're not using jQuery or Axios or what have you, this is a native JavaScript browser library. I highly recommend you get familiar with fetch. Very, very simple and easy to use. Okay, then we're going to take our response. Then we're going to do response.json. We're going to convert it into JSON. Okay, and you notice that I don't have any parentheses. That's because with ES6, with arrow functions, if you have only one parameter, you can basically eliminate the parentheses and the curly braces. Okay, so this is essentially your function. Okay, and then we're going to do .then again. And if you're not familiar with what .then is, it's basically just something called promise. And if you're not familiar with promises, definitely get familiar with those. Google that. We're going to make more videos on that down the road. Okay, so basically we're going to take the return value of this guy here, okay, and we're going to, this .then here is going to inherit that return value. Okay, that's how promises work in a nutshell. We're going to, every .then inherits the return value of its preceding .then. Okay, so we're going to take our response that we get back. Okay, and we're going to do curly braces. I have a curly brace because we're going to have some more functionality here, but let's do console.log. Let's just log our response to see what we get. I'm going to hit save. Okay, I'm going to go to console. And why are we not seeing it? Oh, because we haven't invoked it. Okay, so we're going to invoke that right at the end here. Okay, get data. That's how we invoke the function. Then there we go. Now we have our restaurants JSON. Okay, from our c.js. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to create the individual function here. That's going to basically generate the view every time we need to. So when we initially generate the view of all the cards, likewise when we do our searching, our sorting, and our filtering, we want to basically be able to reuse this function here to generate our view. And basically our view is going to be generated by that one reusable function every time, right? We're going to be able to use it all around the app. Okay, and that's what's going to help us basically achieve reusability and modularity. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's create a function called generate view. Okay, generate view, and that's going to basically take in some data. We don't know what that data is yet, but we'll get to it. Okay, let's do our arrow functionality, our arrow syntax, and then full curly brace, close curly brace. And now initially what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to hide all the cards initially. And that's because when we invoke this function, we're gonna have to basically we're gonna have old data, especially when we do our filtering. Say we select American, say we do Mexican, or pizza, whatever. We don't want the old data to be there. So basically, to refresh the view, we want to clear out all the old data and replace it with the new data. Likewise, when we do our searching, we want there to be always the updated view with the new data, the new search term. Okay, we don't want any old data to persist. Okay, that's why we're going to have to basically clear all the cards initially, and then load / render the new data, and we're going to do that in our later functions. Okay, now initially to do that, what we're going to have to do is we have to target our cards wrapper, div inside our HTML. So let's just do document.get element, by ID, and we're going to do single quotes cards wrapper. Okay, now basically what we're going to do is we're targeting, the point is that we're targeting, if we go back to our HTML, you see this div here. Inside this div here is where all our cards are going to live. Okay, let me just close this CJS here. So basically we're targeting this guy here, okay? And what the point is, we want to be able to loop over these and hide each and every card, okay? And right now, when we use document.get element by ID, what's going to happen is it's going to return since it's going to be a collection, it's going to return something called an HTML collection. Okay, and that's an HTML collection is similar to an array, but it's not really an array, so we can't really loop over it the way we would a regular array. Okay, if you're not familiar with what an HTML collection is, definitely Google it. So basically, we want to convert that to an array. So the way we're going to do that is syntax is you write empty array dot slice dot call, open and close parentheses. Okay. And inside that, we're going to call the actual element. Okay. Now this HTML collection is going to get converted into an array, but we want to be able to target the children. Okay. The children. Okay. So we're basically going to be targeting the children of this element here, and that's going to basically represent all our cards. Okay, and then we're going to loop over the card wrapper that for each, excuse me, and open and close parentheses, and we're going to take in a card, which is, we'll just call it L. Okay, and we're going to do L. So basically for each card, we're going to hide them, right? So we're going to do L.style, style.display, and we're going to set it to none. Okay, and what this is basically going to do is it's going to loop over our cards wrapper, right? It's going to loop over, it's going to target each child, right? And we're going to take each card, and then we're going to, each card, this is how you write CSS. This is how you target CSS. You apply CSS through JavaScript. Each element now has a style property, and which consequently has a display property, and we're just using our CSS display none, and we're setting it for each and every element. Okay, and let's do the same for clear our filtered results. Okay, so if you notice from before, we have our filtered results here. We want to basically just reset that every time our function is invoked, our generate function is invoked. Every time we generate a new view, we want to clear our filter results, and we want to clear out all our old data. And then down here is where we're going to basically add whatever we need to. Okay. All right, guys. So now we're going to go ahead and create the cards. We're going to do create cards. Okay. So now in here, we're going to actually write, what's going to happen is we're going to have to loop over the data, and basically for each restaurant inside either the JSON or the collection of HTML elements that are passed in, we're gonna have to basically just loop over it and loop over the data and just render the cards. Okay, so let's just write. So let's take our data. Okay, let's take our data and let's do data dot for each. Okay, and then we'll open close parentheses, and let's take an L and IDX for index. We're not going to use index right now, but down the road in further videos we will. Okay, so now basically what's going to happen is data, and let's do response.restaurants. Okay, so that's basically our restaurants array. Okay, and basically what's going to happen is we're going to pass generate view inside here and pass in response.restaurants. That's going to be for our initial view generation. Okay, so basically at that point what's going to happen is it's going to take in data, which is response.restaurants, right? And we're going to loop over it using for each, and then L represents each restaurant, right? So basically what we want to do is we're going to have to put a check. So we're going to have to say, okay, if the data is JSON, and we can check using say L.id. I know there's an ID property. So if this L.id evaluates truthy, we want to basically run a function that's going to create the HTML for each singular card. Okay, and let's call this function create card. We're going to create this function shortly, right after this. Okay, so now we're checking, okay, if our data is JSON, then evaluate this function. Okay, invoke this function, excuse me. Otherwise, if HTML elements, and that's because we want to do this check because the data that we're going to pass in to generate view is not always going to be like the initial JSON that we get from c.js, right? We're going to be, since this function is reusable, we're going to use this generate view function inside our filter function, sort, and search function, and that's basically going to generate a new view each time, and we're going to pass in HTML elements inside these functions that we're going to pass into our into our search results and filtered results. So basically we want to check if our HTML elements, if our data is HTML elements, and so we can do else if, else you can just do else document dot get element by ID cards wrapper, and we're going to do to that we're going to append L. So again, if this is if each element is opposed to being a JSON object, if each element here is an HTML element, then we're just going to append it to our card wrapper. Okay, and then we're going to just set the display equals sty display equals initial. Actually, it should be flex because I have set them to flex. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And just to reiterate, we're making them display flex here because initially when generate view is run, I remember we're setting them all to hide. We're displaying them as none. So now we're saying is if these are HTML elements, set the display to flex. Okay guys, so now we're going to create the function that's going to basically create the HTML for each card. Okay, so we're going to do const create card equals and equals a function that's going to take in a restaurant object to be more specific. Okay, and inside here we're going to start by creating card elements. Okay, so since we're using vanilla JavaScript, what we're going to have to do is we're going to create each element first. Okay, so we're going to need an aside for each card, for each square. Then we're going to need a p tag for the restaurant name, another p tag for the restaurant address, one for the restaurant type, which is the tag, and then one for the actual review count. Okay, so let's go ahead and create those. Okay guys, so now I've created our card element, our restaurant name element, which is a p tag, a restaurant address, restaurant type, and restaurant review count. Okay, these are going to be p tags. And basically what we're going to do is now we're going to since we've created these elements, we're going to have to basically append to each of these elements our data from our restaurant object. Okay, so to do that, we're gonna create the data. Okay, and we can do rest name dot append. Okay, and we can do rest dot name. Because remember, this is an object that we're gonna pass in here. Okay, so since we're invoking create card function here, we're passing a restaurant object from our JSON, right? And L represents each card, and basically L is just basically that restaurant, and we're just doing rest.name. Okay, likewise, let's do okay guys, so now I've appended all the data onto from my restaurant object onto our card elements. Okay, so we have restaurant name, address, cuisine type, and reviews.length. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to append the text node to each card. Okay, so the text node, I mean, is these guys here. Okay, the elements. So we're going to do let's do append text node to card. Okay, all right guys, so now we're going to basically append each text node to the card. Okay, so let's do card dot append rest name name, and we can do card dot append rest add, and then likewise here rest review count, and then you know what, let's do this. Let's do number of reviews. There we go. All right, so let's do that, and then let's do rest type. Okay, and then after that, now we're gonna append the card, each individual card, to the DOM. Okay, so let's do card, but before that, we're gonna do some we're going to add some classes and some data attributes that are going to help us style and target these for JavaScript, some actual functionality. All right, so let's do append card to DOM. Now let's do card.class list. This is how you add a class to an HTML element in JavaScript. Okay, .classlist.add, and I'm just going to give it a class of card, because this is what I'm targeting in my CSS. Okay, and likewise, we're going to let's do card.set attribute. This is how you set a custom attribute, or you can even do set attribute class and whatever. But either way, so let's do data dash. Let's give it a data attribute of type. Wow, can't type. And let's do rest.cuisine type. Okay, basically what we're doing is we're creating a data attribute on each card, not each p tag, but each card. We're setting a data attribute, and then we're gonna of type, and then we're gonna set it equal to the type. So the type could be like Asian, American, Mexican, etc., etc. Okay, and then likewise, let's do one for data name. So let's do name, and let's do rest.name, and I'll show you why we'll be doing this. This is basically going to be I believe for the filtering, so we'll get to this down the road, but right for now, let's just add data attribute for filtering, or let's just add data attribute. It's fine. Okay, and then after that, let's do cards wrapper.append card. Okay, and this should do it for us. And again, cards wrapper is our HTML element. This guy here, cards wrapper, and then we're appending card to it. So let's hit save, and now let's go back to the browser, and we should see our because we haven't invoked this function yet. Because we haven't invoked generate view inside our JSON here. So we're going to do like this, generate view, and now it should all work like a charm. There we go, perfect. All right, so now we have our restaurants, and voila. All right, so now since we have all our cards rendering, let's just go in the browser and let's just do inspect real quick. Just want to show you guys. Okay, so now we have our cards wrapper. Okay, right here. And inside that, we have each aside with a class of card and its corresponding data type and its name, right? So data type Asian, for this guy we have data type pizza, name Emily, data type Asian, Kang, and you see what I'm saying. So let's open up an aside here, and now inside here you can see each p tag has been appended. Okay, we'll play with I know this guy didn't get a proper p tag, but we'll go back and fix that at some point. All we're gonna have to do is just add a p tag for it and append it back to the card. But right now I just want to move through and just get the functionality going. So as you can see here, everything's in the side, everything's rendering properly, except that one thing that's bugging me, but that's fine. So let's now do the search functionality, okay? So let's do the search functionality. So let's go to our code here, and let's see search restaurant by name. So let's create a new function here called, oh, wow, not there. Search restaurants, okay? And it's not going to take in any parameters, at least yet. Okay, search restaurants. And what we're going to do now in here is basically, we're going to create a button. Well, we already have our button created. Our search button here. Okay, and what we're going to do is let's create two variables here. So we're going to call one search res. Okay, and this is going to be, I believe this is for our input. Search res. Where's that? Search rest, yes. So this is our, let's target our input. Let's get that so we can get the input that we type in. So document get element by ID, and we're going to do search rest. Okay. Now we're going to target the actual submit button. So let's do const search submit equals document get element by. Ooh. What is going on? And let's do search submit. Okay. So we have our search rest, and that's going to target our input, search rest, and search submit. It's going to target our search submit. Now we want to basically initialize another variable called search term. And what this is going to do is it's going to store our search term, like whatever we type into our input box here. It's going to store that on change into that a variable there. And the reason we're declaring it right there is because, for scoping purposes, we want to basically let our inner functions, commonly also known as our closures, to have access to its lexical scope, which is this guy here. All right, the lexical scope is basically just the parent. So I can do a little crash course on closures here, but I'll talk through it as I go. All right, so let's do, so now on our search input, which is search rest, we're going to add an event listener, add event listener of change. Okay, and we're going to pass it to a function, and we're going to give it an event parameter. Okay, and let's do, whoa, what did I do? I did not mean to do that. And let's do search term equals event dot target dot value. Okay, and basically this is what this is going to do is we're declaring a search term variable here, and now on our input we're creating a change handler. This is how you add an event listener to an HTML element in JavaScript. Okay, and we can do click, but we're in other event listeners, but right now we're doing change. So we're passing it a callback function in which events.target.value is basically whatever we type in here, it's going to basically detect it, right? Event.target.value is going to extract the value from the input and save it inside the search term here. Okay. And now let's do search term, search submit, excuse me. Now this is our search handler, the event handler button. Okay, so like this, wow, this button here, search, we're going to target that, and we're going to put a click handle on it. All right, so let's do search submit dot add event listener, and we're going to do click. Okay, and we're going to pass another callback, and then we're going to do event. I didn't do the mistaken ES6 functionality syntax, excuse me. All right, and let's do event.prevent default, and this is going to basically this guy here is going to basically prevent the page from reloading. Okay, because let's see, if I save it and I go back, what's going to happen is when I hit search, the page is going to see how it reloads, right? With event.prevent default, when you have that, it basically takes the event and the event parameter, and it finds a prevent default behavior function and it runs it. All right, so now if I hit search, it's not gonna because I haven't actually invoked this function, but that's what this is for. Once I actually invoke the search restaurants function, you're gonna see that happen. Okay. All right, guys, so now once this is done, let's move on to our next steps. Okay, so now next what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to, since we're doing a search, right? Since every time the search is invoked, search functionality is invoked, what's gonna happen is, say we search for something and it shows up, but then we search for something else again, we're gonna apply the same concept that we did here. We're gonna have to hide the old. Okay, we're gonna have to hide the old search results. Okay, so we're gonna take our we're gonna do clear previous search results, and we're gonna do search results, which is our array that we declared up there, and then we're gonna just set it equal to empty. Okay, and now we're going to take our cards wrapper. Let's just jack from up here. Okay, let's declare it here. Okay, now we're going to loop over it, and then now basically what's going to happen is we're going to loop over all the cards, and then we're going to basically push. We're going to do a check to see if our typed input matches one of the data attributes on our card, one of these guys here. All right, this is why we created these data types. If it matches either data type or data name, then we're going to create a new list and render that. And we're going to render that using our generate view function. Okay, so let's see. Down here, let's do search by, let's move this out of here, name or type. Okay, and we'll do cards wrapper dot map, and the reason we want to do map is because map creates a new array opposed to for each, which just mutates the existing one. Okay, so now we're going to do our check. Okay, so now we're going to say if L, which is our so now as we're looping over our cards wrapper, which is this guy here, since now we're looping over all of these, we're going to check. And then remember, this is happening on submit press after we type in our search term. Type in our search term, hit submit. We're going to loop over all these guys here, all our cards, and we're going to check if L.data set, that's going to target the data attribute on our HTML element or our card, and we're going to check for the named data attribute, which is this guy here, data name. And this is how you target a data attribute in JavaScript, by the way. Dataset.name, okay, or dataset. Whatever, at a custom attribute name you've added. We're gonna do to lowercase. I'm gonna set it to lowercase because some of these are set to camel case, first capital, right? capital K, K, M, E, R. So we're going to set it to lowercase. All right, and we're going to check if our dataset name includes search term. So if our search term is a part of this guy here or this guy here, well, really, at least in this particular check, we're checking only for the name. What we're going to do is we're going to do search results, which is this guy here. Now we're going to push into it. Okay, we're going to do search results dot push L. Okay, and let's do the same thing for dataset dot type. Okay, so let's do dataset dot type. If L.dataset dot type, which is our dataset data attribute, includes our search term, we're going to push into our search results array. Okay, and then now outside this guy here, let's call our generate view function. Right, so this is our reusable generate view function. This is going to generate a new view again. Right, it's going to hit this guy here now. It's going to hit this else because we're going to pass in this search results array, which is an array of HTML elements. Okay, and we're going to pass in our search results array. Oh, come on, search. You can do it. Search results. Okay, so it's going to save that, and now what we're going to do is up here, we're going to just invoke it. Okay, now this should work. Well, let's search for Emily. Okay, it looks a little funky because I think that's why. There we go. Okay, and let's search for pizza. There we go. Likewise, let's search for mex, which is a substring, so it works. Okay, so we have our search working. Let's do, I don't know, mission Chinese food. There we go. Okay, so that works. So our search is working now. Oh, and also you might have noticed that the event.prevent default, having that, remember we spoke about this guy here, that prevented from reloading on button press. All right, so there you go. It's not reloading the page, it's just basically taking out the old and generating, appending the new items, the new HTML elements, to the DOM. Okay. Right, guys, so now since we have our search feature working, let's work on our sorting. Okay, so let's basically what we're going to do is on sort alphabetically button press, we're going to sort the names of each restaurant alphabetically. Right, so Casa Enrique will be first, Emily will be second, so on and so forth. Okay, alphabetically. So let's go. So let's do consort restaurant equals a function that takes in no parameters yet. Let's do const, let's do sort button, because we're going to target the actual sorting button, and we're going to do document dot get element by ID, and we're going to do sort res, and this targets this guy here. Okay, the sort alphabetically button. Okay, and then to that button, we're going to add an event listener. So let's do sort button dot add event listener of click, and we'll pass it a callback function. It takes in an event parameter. Actually, we're not even going to be using it, but I'll just leave it for now. Whoa. Okay, let's do that. And basically, we're going to do our same guy here, event dot prevent default, because we don't want to reload the page, right? So let's do that, and now we're going to target our card wrapper again. So let's jack this guy here again. Okay, and let's put him here. Oh, not there. Whoa, not there. Okay, and now we can write the logic for our sorting. Okay, so now let's do sort. Let's write a comment here. Sort by names alphabetically on all cards. Okay. There we go. And let's create a variable called sorted, inside which we're going to store the value of our sorted sorted HTML elements. Okay, so now in here we're going to do cards wrapper, and we're going to call the sort function sort. That's going to take another callback, and then go to a comma b. This is going to represent our elements. Okay, and we're going to sort them by a.dataset.name, which is the data attribute of name. Okay, I'm going to check if that's greater than b.dataset.name. Okay, let's see if that equals to 1. Otherwise, set it to -1. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take our generate view function, and we're going to pass in our sorted. Okay, sorted is basically the array of the newly sorted HTML elements. Okay, and now let's call this guy up here. Like that. Let's hit save. All right, and now let's see and sort. There we go. All right, so that works. I'm gonna refresh it again. I'm gonna hit sort. There we go. Now you can see C, E, H, and it's all alphabetical. All right, so the sorting's good now. All right, my friends, and now we're going to work on the very last part, which is the filtering. So let's create so the filtering is going to basically be this guy here. We're going to filter by tags, so like American, Asian, Mexican, pizza. That sounded like one, never mind. Okay, so let's create a function called const filter by type. Okay, and it's going to be a function that takes in no parameters yet. Open and close curly braces. Okay, and now we're going to target the actual dropdown. Okay, so let's do type dd for dropdown. Let's do document.get element by ID, and we're going to do filter by type. That's it. We want to select that one. Okay, and now we're gonna check cards wrapper again. I could have probably just set this as a var all the way up in the global scope here and just use it that way, but when I optimize, I'll correct that. Because right now that's not good because it's extra DOM nodes. Extra code that the parser will have to evaluate, and the less your code, the better. Okay, these are just some tidbits and tricks, but like when you're actually building it, sometimes you kind of tend to overlook these things when you're in a rush, but nevertheless. So now let's add an event listener on this dropdown of change, right? Because when we select a certain value from that dropdown, we want to do something with it, right? So let's take in an event and let's do let selected type equals e.target.value. This is just going to store whatever our selection is, like Asian or Mexican. It's going to store it inside the selected type variable here. Okay, so now let's loop over our cards wrapper again. For each, let's take in an element, which is going to represent each card, and then we're going to check to see if selected type, whatever we click on, and we're going to basically check for, we're going to compare two strings. Okay, so the selected type is whatever we select, and we're going to do local compare. This is how you, this is a neat way to do string comparison. And we're going to compare it to l.dataset.type. Okay, equals 0. And notice we're using two equal to signs where we're checking for value, not for triple equals. We'll basically check for type as well. We don't want to do that right now. Type is good enough for now. All right, so we're going to compare what we select to the data attribute. Okay, if those match, right, again, we're going to loop over our cards, and for each card we're going to check if our selected type matches one of these data attributes of the type. Okay, this guy here, type American or Asian, And if that happens, then what we want to do is want to add it to our filtered results. Okay, so filtered results dot push, and filtered results is this guy here. All right, this guy here. Remember, we cleared it. We cleared the value inside our generate view. Now we're adding to it. Okay, dot push. We're going to push L. Okay, and then outside the cards wrapper, we're gonna just take generate view, and we're gonna push in our filtered result. We're gonna pass in our filtered results. Okay, and now let's take this. Let's invoke this guy up here. Oops, why do I always do a typo? All right, and now let's see. Now this should work. Okay, Asian. View, filter results, filter by type, filter by type. Children, cover, replace type, compare. Oh, that's why. Locale compare. Okay, and now let's see. There we go. Pizza, American, Asian. All right, and our sorting is not working for the filter results again, but that, we'll check on that later. All right, guys, that's it. This is our little UI app, and as you can see, the sorting the search works, Mexican, and so does the sorting, and as well the filtering works as well. All right. Okay, guys, so that was it. Before I say goodbye, definitely hit like, subscribe, and share. Well, let's just talk about the code a little bit here. So let's just talk about some of the things, some of the wins that we achieved here. So let's just go, from top down. Let's just do a summary of, what we did and the things that we achieved. We declared these two variables here in the global scope that are basically accessible through each one of these functions here. Okay, so we did that. Each function is basically a reusable piece of function, and for example, our generate view function here takes in a piece of data, and we have a conditional that checks whether that data is JSON or if it's HTML elements, and it basically does some logic based on that. Okay, and this is what makes it reusable. For our create card function, this takes in a restaurant object and it creates some HTML for that restaurant object to make it a singular card. Okay, what we're basically displaying here. Oh, you see the flex stuff. Okay, so that's what makes this function reusable. Likewise for the search restaurant functions, we have that as well, and then our sorting and our filter by type. What we want to do in our next videos is basically we want to have, I know Akshay in his video mentioned that we should have a save, like a favorites tab here, that basically we can save each restaurant. We can mark each restaurant as our favorite, the ones that we want to, and those should persist even after we reload the page. And the way we're going to do that is using local storage. Very simple, very easy to implement that. So we're going to do that in the next videos. We'll even style this up, and we'll put a reset button as well. And what I also want to implement at some point is, you see, I want to eliminate this search button, and I want to have it. I want to have the search working on type. So if I type in Mexican, it should filter as I type, on either key up or on change. But yeah, I really enjoyed this video, and again, props to Akshay for laying the foundation for this. And I wanted to give this a challenge. And if you want to give this a challenge yourself, definitely give this a try on your own. Try to modify it, try to do something of your own, try to add your own features. Or if you have a completely different idea, build something cool like this, and try to use plain JavaScript, because doing that is really going to help you strengthen up your core JavaScript skills. All right, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.